Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Wolverine McStud, and welcome to this episode of God Hates Me, so that's why I own a Dodge Neon. Today I'll be changing out the 4 motor mounts. This particular one that's really ugly and looks a lot like my sister, that goes on the driver's hand side. These other 3 that, they resemble my sister too. They go on the passenger side. This one goes on the top, this one goes on the bottom, and this one goes right in the center near the wheel well. I'll also be switching out this lovely contraption here. It's kind of ugly, looks kind of like my sister. That's the alternator. I'm gonna make sure the brake is locked. I'm gonna pop the hood. So keep in mind, I'm not a mechanic, and if you pull your car apart, you can't put it back together. Have fun. Hood open. I'm going to buy a rope. Then I'm gonna make one of these. I'm gonna crack the lugs on both sides in the front. Then I'm gonna jack up both sides of the car in the front. Then I'm gonna put it on some really lousy jack stands that I got from Harbor Freight, but they work. Now that I got her all jacked up, I'm gonna remove the tires. I have chosen to replace the ugliest sister-ish looking motor mount, which goes on the driver's side. So I believe I'm going to be taking out the battery, so I'm going to start doing that. 10 millimeter. Now there's a clip that holds this in. It needs a 13 millimeter tear in the back. Let me show it to you real quick. It's right down here. See that bolt? Okay, now I'm gonna remove the cover for the air filter, 8 millimeter. Now I'm gonna remove this piece, pull it out, just lay it on the side. I don't care about my paint. I'm gonna remove the air filter. I'm gonna undo these clips and take this wiring out. Now I'm gonna use a 10 millimeter to undo the air filter, to move it out of the way. The components of it, whatever. That's what I just removed. So the reason why I loosened this up and took those screws out that hold this in is I've got these screws here that hold the pan for the battery, and they're right underneath this thing, so it just moves it out just enough out of the way so you can get to them. Now I'm going to remove those screws and bolts that hold in the plate that holds up the battery. Damn it all. Oh, by the way, this is a 10 millimeter. There's one other little nasty screw down there. I have to remove a screw that is... I'm gonna have to get my ratchet in there, but see that screw right there? That little one? That's holding it down. Alright, so here's a gander from the bottom. This is the air filter. And if you look right there, that's the screw that's holding it down. That's a 13 millimeter. It's easier to get from the bottom. There's the screw, got her out. Now I'll just take out the pan that holds the battery. Oops, drop the fucking camera. So as we can see, I have taken the plate out from here, and I have unveiled this ugly red-headed stepchild motor mount. And it looks nothing like this ugly ginger mount I have in my hand. So now we're gonna learn a life lesson, which is really just another way of saying the tooth fairy is a cheap bastard. So after using my highly sharpened sleuthing skills, I found out that this particular motor mount is prejudiced towards automatic transmissions and manual transmissions. This particular mount is for an automatic transmission, and I need a different one for my car. So I went back and I looked at my purchase on eBay, and I went through the description. I found out, according to the description, it didn't mention anything about automatic transmissions or manual transmissions. So me, like a dummy, I assumed that, it's all the same, right? Well, they're not! When I figured this out, I started to stomp around like an angry child. I was like, oh crap. Now I have to send all 4 motor mounts back because I bought them as a package deal on eBay. After a moment's time, I decided, hey, how can I make the best of this? My original thought was, hey, I gotta send them all back and pay for the shipping so I can get my money back. But then I decided I'm gonna sell this one part by myself. I'm gonna have the person who buys it pay for the shipping, and that's money in my pocket. So I can get the right part. Or I could pay for return shipping, and that's money out of my pocket. Now that I'm waiting for the correct parts to come in, I'm going to work on the alternator. Now, if we look at this, you can see on the back, there is that. It looks like a ground needs to go there, but I'm not sure at this point. There's some kind of sensor that has to plug in right there. On the front side, or whatever you want to call the front, this is the wheel pulley. This is turned by the drive, and it recharges your battery. We have these two hole points right here and right here. Now down at this end, there is it's either a bolt with a nut on it or a bolt that goes into something else, I don't know. But this pivots. It pivots and it makes the alternator move back and forth. Then at the top you have a locking bolt, which this will be a locking bolt as well too. But this is the pivot point. This locking bolt, you have a bolt that's going through this hole, and the head of it is actually machined. And there's one more screw. Hold on, let me get this baby. There's one more screw that's coming in from this angle, and this is the tensioning bolt. This tensioning bolt goes through the head of this locking bolt. And then you have a nut on this side, and then after you get the tension right for the belt, then you lock this down, and then you're done. So coming this way up on the passenger side, when you come underneath here, you'll find a suicide note. What I really wanted to say is underneath the wheel well of the passenger side, there's normally a splash guard that covers this whole thing. It's a piece of plastic. I was actually going to show that on this video, how to replace one, because mine's been broken for a couple years. But I forgot to order one for this video because I failed at life and my parents hate me. Okay, this is the drive. This runs all the belts for the alternator, for the... fuck, I don't know what the other one is. Anyway, you don't need to know all that information. Here's the drive. Let's look underneath here a little bit. See that bolt right there? That one right there? That is for the pivotal point of the alternator. Alright, so I'm going to crack that with a 15mm. So here's the car from the side. We got her open. We're going to work on the top part of the alternator, and I'm going to just crack the bolts. This is the mount that we're going to be replacing later, but if we come in here and open up all these wires and ropes and whatever the hell they are, you look down there, and there is the tightening bolt, the set bolt, and then if you look right over here on that black thing right there, that's the tensioning bolt. So I'm just going to crack this real quick, and then I'm going to loosen that. So that's a 15mm I got locked down there on the nut right there, and I'm gonna take her off right now. Alright, so now I'm gonna loosen this here. This is the tensioning bolt right there, and I'm gonna make it so that it's loose enough to take the belt off. Undo that with a 13mm. As you can see, this is the front of the car. We're gonna go in, we're gonna go over the top of the head. We're gonna go look down right here, and you can see that this alternator is loose. Here's the tensioning bolt. And it's good for me to take off the belt now. So here, looking underneath the car, there's the drive with the belt on it. We'll come right underneath the wheel well. And you can see right up here, that is the alternator, and we're gonna pull the belt right off. Alright, so here we are looking at the drive right there. If we come up here, here's the alternator. My suspicions were right. There's a wire that attaches to this plastic point. And then we've got this connector up here, right there. Right there. I think we just press on it and it comes off. So let's try it out. I don't know how this fucker comes off. I can't see anything. Ow! God damn it. Oh, ow! I don't have enough room. There's something stopping it from coming off. That's all I'm trying to pull is the fucking electrical shit. I figured it would have some oxidization, but this is too much. God damn it. I got that look in there. Now I have to move so I can press the damn button. Okay. Come on, bitch.
There's like 3 of them, I think.
Oh, it was like it came in my pants. Oh, fuck. see that?
Yep, got on video.
Okay. I took this out. This was extremely difficult to take off. And now I've got a ratchet on the ground wire, and I'm going to undo that with a 10mm. Now we just pull it off like that. See that? Woo! Alright, so now that I've removed the ground wire and the sensor, I'm going to remove the bottom screw all the way with a 15mm. Oops, something fell. So I should be able to pull that out now, I'm hoping. There's the bolt. Yay! So this thing also came out. This is what the bolt was bolted into on the other side. Alright, so looking here over the back of the motor again, if we look down, there's the alternator. I'm going to undo this nut completely now. And I think I should be able to pull the alternator out after this. We'll find out. That's what I pulled out. So after about 15 minutes of wiggling the alternator around, which is right up here, I found out something must move. So I'm going to crack these nuts, take them out completely. There's another one up here you cannot see. And I'll be taking those out with a 15mm. By the way, this piece that I'm taking the screws out, this thing holds up the alternator. It's just in the way, and I think we'll be able to pull it out of the wheel well right here. So I got 2 screws out. I've got the last screw to get out, and I've got this little knuckle thing here that makes it so the ratchet bends. And I'm going to use that to get the last one out that you can't see. And here's the piece I just pulled out. It looks a lot like this. This is holding up the alternator. So now I'm under here and we can finagle this out of the wheel well with a little bit of help from a friend. You can do it. Motherfucker. Oh, my hand's stuck now. Motherfucker. God damn it. Well, apparently this is in the way. Here. And if we look down, there's the other bolt there, or nut, whatever. This bar here out, I think I have enough room. So a 15mm will take this right off. Okay, let's loosen. And a 15mm right down here to take this nut off. So I got these 2 nuts off, and I'm gonna remove this piece right here. Now, if I'm not mistaken, I think I have enough room to move this out of the wheel well. And, oh my goodness, she's out. Woo! So here's the 2 ugly red-headed stepchildren, and as you can see, this one is worn. This is the old one. This is the new one. We're just gonna go in reverse now. Fuck me. So now I'm just gonna put the new one back up inside, and then pray a lot. So I wish I had the time to research the torquing specs for you, but I don't, so I'm just going to show you what I'm going to do because I don't expect this car to last very long. First, I'm going to put this bar back on and drop the bolt that held it in. Well, this piece fell out. I got to put it back in like this. Hooray! And then we'll put the bar back on. And then I'll put the nut on. So with a little help from a friend who can hold up the alternator for you, move it out of the way, you can put back in this bracket. So I got the mount that holds the alternator at the bottom mounted back to the block. So now I'm going to take the top of the alternator right here, and I'm going to hang it from the locking pin that goes through the tensioning bolt. So I'm just going to relieve you from having to pick it up. All you got to do is guide it on. Oh, I don't think you understand.
Oh yeah, I understand. It's got to go right through the hole of the... Pretty simple to understand. It's going right through here, son. Well, you're not getting it anywhere close.
Loose, so it can go up and down and wiggle all around.
Yeah, well, I had it as far back as I could get it. If I could lift...
Oh, I know it's got to be close because that's how I pulled the damn thing out. I don't think you were understanding that that bolt can wiggle up and down, left and right.
Oh, I did. I had it back and forth, up and down. You weren't getting it close.
I'm going to reset her right here, and then I'm going to put these in. Yeah, I just did that hand tight. Now I'm going to put the belt back on. So now I'm going to use the tensioning bolt to tighten it. And after I tension her, I'm going to use this top pin here to lock it down, and then also the pivotal one underneath the wheel well. So underneath the car, I'm just going to replug this in and reattach this. Yay! So now that I'm done replacing the alternator, I'm going to crack this here. This is an 18 millimeter. And I'm going to crack this one with an 18 millimeter as well. Sometimes I like to put the bolts back in the place where they go so I don't lose them. Alright, so it's got these ugly star bolts here, and as you can see, the reason why I'm changing out my mounts is they're extremely overused. All the rubber inside is cracked. I'm going to pull this thing off and put it on the new one because I don't know what the heck it's for, if it's for heat or balance, I don't know. God knows what it's for. So to remove this, I'm going to use a Torx 30. Then I'm going to put it back on the new one. So I can't put this in yet because I still have to remove the center mount, and I'm going to have to remove the bottom one as well. So here I am at the bottom mount. I'll be cracking this nut on this side with an 18 millimeter. And strangely enough, I'll be removing this bar again with a 15 millimeter. There we go. Oh yeah. Yeah, baby. Now I'm going to pull this washer off, and that's going to unveil something I need a deep socket for. And I don't have a deep socket, so it means I'm going to use a wrench. So now I'm going to crack this with a, what the hell size is that? An 18 millimeter as well. They're all 18s, wouldn't you know? So I guess I can keep getting this one from this side, because the nut on the back side is tacked to this piece of hardware here. Alright, take this one out. And then this one should come out. Come on, baby. There we go. And there is the bottom mount removed. I just pulled out this fancy looking screw. This is not actually a nut. It's got two different threads on either side. And then of course this one here. I need to put the motor up on a jack. I called this the oil pan earlier. I don't know if that's an oil pan or the bell housing, or don't quote me on this stuff. I'm gonna use my jack in a 2x4, and I want to snug it right up against that. I don't want to lift the engine much. Once I see it lift up less than 1/16 of an inch, I'll know it's holding the motor up. Now if I look up this way, there's this cap right here that I'm gonna remove with a flat screwdriver. Well, what the hell, a pair of channel locks will work too. There we go. And that reveals the main bolt holding up the motor. Now this bolt is a Torx bolt. It's a Torx 55. You're going to want to put that on a breaker bar. Now when I undo this bolt, I'm going to take it so it goes just past the chassis, so that if the motor drops while I'm working inside there, hopefully I won't lose any fingers. Okay, and that's still in the motor block. Alright, so coming in this way, here's the last motor mount that I'm going to remove. You'll see this strut right here. I'm hoping I don't have to remove that. Well, I'm hoping it would be easy, but these screws, I unscrewed that one down there and it's too long. It hits this strut and we're gonna have to remove this. It's a big pain in the ass. Okay, here we are looking right down at the side. Here's this piece of metal strut on the side of the motor that I have to remove. This is the steering fluid pump. I have to remove everything from it so that I can move the engine up and down to get to the bolts that hold this to the engine block. So I'm going to start with this bolt right here that has the ground wire on it. It also holds the hoses for the steering fluid. Make that a 10 millimeter. Now if you look right down here, this is the, that right there, that's the tensioning pulley. I'm going to put on a 17 millimeter and pull it towards the pulley here, and the belt should come right off. Just like that. So now that I got the belt off, there's holes inside this pulley here, and you can freely move this now. There's 3 bolts holding the pump to this piece, and I gotta kind of look around for them. There we go. Finally got the right setup. And that's what one of them looks like. 2 more left. Here's the second one. Now for this last one, I'm using a small ratchet 13. It's not deep enough to get in there, but I just need a little extension, so I'm using a converter from 3/8 to 1/4 inch. And that should get me right in there to get the last one. Once you crack these bolts here, you can untighten them by hand. There we go. And the third bolt's out. Yay! So now we're on this side of the fuel pump right here. There's 2 bolts down here between the coolant and the air intake. So hopefully I won't have to remove anything. I can get my ratchet down in there and get them. And these are 13 millimeters as well. And these bolts hold it to a bracket that is attached to the engine block. Now the top bolt has a slot in it, so I don't have to remove it all the way, I just loosened it. But the bottom one, I have to take out the entire way. With this little tiny ratchet, I can hardly fit down in there. So here's the bolt I just pulled out. Well, I'm just gonna undo this top one too all the way. Oh, drop her. Here's the other one. So I think she just needs a little greasy grease on the sides to help her slip out. I gotta pull this nut off.
Whoa, that's cool. He's ripping out something. I can't see. Sorry. It looks like. Is it ugly as his sister?
There we go. Hey, you know, I'm on film here. Now that I got the pump out of the way, I'm gonna come underneath the wheel well and finish taking out this Torx bolt. All the way. And that's her right there. Then, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna drop the engine on the jack, just so I can get to the bolt on the bottom that takes that side strut off. There we go. Right there. That's the bottom one. Now I'm gonna raise the engine. There's these 2 little fins that fit right where the motor mount is, and you gotta be careful when you're lifting the engine up. You have to rock the engine out of the way so those fins don't catch the motor mount. So I raised the engine enough to get this one. It's also a 15 millimeter. Bolt number 2. Now this last one is hard. Using a 13 millimeter, I'm gonna pull off the fuel injectors. These should pop right out. Doink, just like that. Okay. And with an 8 millimeter, I'm gonna remove the exhaust or the air intake manifold. Alright, here's the air intake. If you come to the left, there's 2 screws holding it down. One is right down in here. You can see it right there. There's another one on the right too. That's right down underneath this tubing here, and it's a little harder to get to. They come out with a 10 millimeter. So here's the 2 screws I pulled out for the air intake. Now I'm going to remove, here's the exhaust, or the air intake. Here is an 8 millimeter, and I'm going to loosen this up here. In fact, I'm just going to take the whole thing completely out, because that's kind of how I roll when I do these. It's just easier that way. Alright. And I'm going to remove this. It's a bit sticky. There we go. And just pull that out. I'm going to remove this from the air filter compartment, just like that. This baby should come right up. Come on. Alright, so now I want to take off this sensor here. There's a little red tab, you just slide it out. Then it allows you to press the button, and then it should come right off. There's a little stress on it, so it's having a hard time coming off. I didn't get a very good shot of me pulling the exhaust or the intake up and out. Well, I think that's good enough. This should be loose enough. I can pull the engine forward now. I just needed this loosen up and out of here so that it doesn't butt up against the fan when I pull the engine forward to get that last screw out for that strut. Alright, so here's the bracket for the oil. I dropped the engine as far as I can. I'm going to put a rope through the bracket that was holding on the steering fluid pump to the motor block. And that rope is then going to just go through there, wrap around the ball of my truck, which is over here that you can't see.
And I'm just going to make a cinch. So when I pull the motor forward, I'm using a cinch like this. It's just a stick through doubled up rope, and I have it attached to the ball of my truck so we can pull the engine forward as I lift it. As I'm lifting it with the jack, I'm gonna have my pop cinch the engine forward. At the same time, we're gonna do it nice and slow because we need the engine to come forward to get that last screw out of that strut on the side.
So am I going to back it off or am I going to just keep going?
You're gonna keep going. There we go.
What?
And we got the screw out. So we cinched the engine forward, lifted it up high enough, got the screw out. Alright, so here's the strut now. It's completely loose. I'm gonna have to pull it out, figure out how it's gonna come out. There we go. And there we have it. Alright, now that I got this baby pulled out, I'm gonna come over here to the motor mount and pull out those 4 screws right there. 1, 2, 3, and 4 using a 13mm. So I pulled out these screws here, and here's the old motor mount. I lifted the engine a little higher to give me enough room to move it out of the way. So I can pull it right out. Now I'm going to put the new one in, just the same way. I'm going to put these 4 screws back in, right here. But I'm going to use a little bit of thread lock on each one. For the thread lock, I just like to put a little bead down one side. That's all you need. They weren't torqued very tight, so I'm using the thread lock on them. Now we have to replace that side metal strut thingy. Alright, so with the motor fully lifted and we have it cinched forward, I can replace this piece here nicely and easily. Put it in there like that. And you want to hold it snug right where it goes. And when you do that, when you put this screw in, this nasty one, it goes right in. If you have enough hands. You just got it right in the hole. And it goes right in perfectly. Come on. There we go. And hand tighten a few threads. And we'll do this screw too right here. Got those 2 hand tightened a little bit. And I'm going to torque those down. I'm going to torque them both to about 45 foot-pounds. That one's done. And it's a little hard to get it in here, but I got it in here well enough. I'm going to torque this to 45 as well. Now we'll drop the engine, put the last one in the bottom right here. And I'm going to torque that to 45 pounds as well. Right there, okay. Boom. Alright, now I'm going to lift the motor to the right size, or to the right height. I'm going to replace this Torx bolt right here. Now, the engine has that bracket we just put back on, has like a V like this, and the motor mount on the inside has a little thing that goes like this, and you got to lock them into each other, and when you do that, that means the holes lined up perfectly to put the screw in. There we go. Oh yeah. Before I go sticking her in, I got to put some thread lock on her. So I'm going to torque this to about 75 foot-pounds. I keep finding different torque specs and I'm getting sick and tired of it. So I'm just going to do it right around the middle. Everyone's calling the parts different parts. I can't figure out what's what. Well, I went to 80, so 80 foot-pounds. Alright, so I just got done torquing the Torx bolt. I put back in the air intake manifold, the fuel injectors. I put in the steering fluid pump. I reattached the ground here. I put the belt back on, right down here. And I put the plug back in the hole for the bolt. Alright, so here's my new bracket. This little fin is going to go in towards the engine. There's also this kind of protrusion thing goes towards there. So we'll put that right down in here. And we're just going to get the bolts in there hand tight real quick.
Now, the engine can still rock, and this is not going to line up very well. So I have to push the top of the engine back in order to get this to line up. Get it in there a couple and tighten threads. Okay, I'm using an 18mm. There's not much room for play on this one. So I'm just going to tighten her. Now that's not torqued yet. It's got to be at 87 foot-pounds. All right, somehow I fouled up and I didn't press the record button, but this bolt here, the center of it to the center of this little thing, I needed to get about 4 inches and 3/4 distance from center to center. And it's actually just a little bit, a hair less than that I wanted. So I put the bolts in, I rocked it back and forth, and then I took the measurement, and that's what I got. And then I torque these down to 87 foot-pounds. Alright, so here's the new motor mount for the bottom. There's a protrusion there and one here on this side. Those go towards the motor. The bolts for this have to be torqued at 87 foot-pounds. I don't have a deep socket for the one bolt, so I'm just going to put some thread lock on it and pretend that I got it at 87. And I already measured the top, so this should fit perfectly. Goes right in. So now I got the two mounts mounted. Yay! I'm gonna reattach this piece of garbage. I'm just gonna make them good and tight. Oh, I think I'm missing a washer. Hell, I can't find the washer, so fuck the washer. So I got the right part in, so I'm going to continue with replacing the transmission mount. So I got a jack with a piece of wood on top of it, and it's holding up the transmission side of the engine. And I just have it snugged up against there to hold the weight. Now I'm on the driver's hand side. I'm going to pull this cap. Ooh, it's not a Torx. I'm going to crack that bolt with a 19mm. Before I pull that bolt out all the way, I want to crack these. This is a 15mm. I'm going to crack the two going down into the transmission. Now I'm going to pull this out the rest of the way. Woo. All right. Now I'm going to drop the transmission just a few inches. And as you can see, there's these two bolts here that we have to undo. Those are 15mm. Just got those out. I gotta drop the transmission just a little bit more to get the mount out. Ah, there we go. That took a long time to finagle that out. So here's the new one here. I haven't got it where it's supposed to be right here yet. But if you look right down here, there's these two screws. If you remove this bottom one here, it's gonna be so much easier to put back in and probably take the other one out. But I got the other one out without taking that screw out, but I'm gonna take that one out right now. Alright, so I removed that one screw and I've got the new mount up in here. Let's see if we can't get her in. Yeah, removing that one screw sure made it a lot easier. Alright. And there we go, line the holes right up. Now that I got this in here and that bolt tightened, I'm just gonna stick the bolt underneath. Through to hold this up. Alright. Just to keep it from falling. Now I'm going to raise the transmission, but I'm going to leave the two holes in the wheel well still exposed. So as you can see under here, I just had this pin holding the mount up. I'm going to line these holes up here, and I'm going to tighten her down. So I'm going to torque these to 45 foot-pounds. I lifted the transmission, lined up the hole, screwed that in with my gun, and now I'm going to torque it down to about 80 foot-pounds. So I torqued that bolt underneath, and I reassembled the air filter, the battery pan, all that stuff, put this stuff all back together, these wires here, and then I also replaced the tires back on the car on both sides. So what did we learn today? Boys and girls, there's always a better order
of procedure. Now, I wish that I could have shown you before and after. See, my engine was running cattywampus. It means it's just shaking like hell. The cab would shake and it was so loud, it sounded like there was an airplane flying through my car with a crying baby in the airplane. But now it runs rather smooth and, you know, I don't have before and after to show you otherwise. So you'll just have to take my word for it. My name's Eric Stillman and I'm signing off. Thank you for watching this episode of, yep, she was banging all 7 of them.